let's get going. Father's Day, I thought we'd start off by reading a story about women, because men, let's be real, we've been learning from women for our entire lives, and why it's always the ladies that cheer. Yeah, you have, don't you forget it, right? Like, gosh, can you let us have our day? Like, geez. 1 Kings chapter 3. The story says this: the very next thing, two prostitutes showed up before the king. The one woman said, "My master, this woman and I live in the same house, and while we were living together, I had a baby. 3 days after I gave birth, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There wasn't anyone else in the house except for the two of us. The infant son of this woman died one night when she rolled over on him in her sleep. She got up in the middle of the night and took my son. I was sound asleep, mind you, and put him at her breast and put her dead son at my breast. When I got up in the morning to nurse my son, here was this dead baby. But when I looked at him in the morning light, I saw immediately that he wasn't my baby." "Not so," said the other woman. "The living one's mine and the dead one is yours." The first woman countered, "No, your son's the dead one. Mine's the living one." They went back and forth this way in front of the king. The king then said, "What are we going to do?" This woman says, "The living son is mine and the dead one is yours." And this woman says, "No, the dead one is yours and the living one is mine." After a moment, the king said, "Bring me a sword." They brought the sword to the king. Then he said, "Cut the living baby in two and give half to one and half to the other." The real mother of the living baby was overcome with emotion for her son, and she said, "Oh no, master, give her the whole baby alive. Don't kill him." But the other one said, "If I can't have him, you can't have him. Cut away." The king gave his decision: give the living baby to the first woman. Nobody is going to kill this baby. She is the real mother. The word got around. Everyone in Israel heard of the king's judgment. They were all in awe of the king, realizing that it was God's wisdom that enabled him to judge truly. You know, in life, I've been kind of in this, this brain space of thinking about just how much we don't think about, or we're not conscious of the things that we really are thinking about. Last weekend when we gathered, I talked about how science shows that only 10% of what we think about is actually conscious, which means that there's a whole other 90% of what's going on the inside of us that either is subconscious or not conscious at all. And this is really, really important, because the unconscious stuff is like where our belief systems are housed. Not just what I believe as it pertains to spirituality or religion or things like that, but what I believe about the world, what I believe about the things around me, what I believe about myself. We don't really take a whole lot of time in our lives to stop and think about the things that we believe. And again, it transcends any conversation on religion. It's like, here's like a really practical example. Like, why in our society, for all of you meat eaters out there, is it okay to eat a cow, but if I tell you, hey, we're going to eat horse for lunch, you would instantly think, no, there's something wrong with that, right? Like, we have conviction that horses shouldn't be eaten. Well, why do you think that? What is the difference? Like, one you get milk from and one you ride from one place to another. Like, what makes it okay to eat a cow, but it's not okay to eat a horse? We have these belief systems, these things that are internal, that we don't really know why we think the way that we do. But at the core of the things that we believe, there's a reason. It's like why do we eat? Here's one I put on Instagram the other day. Like, why do we eat chicken eggs? Like, you ever thought about the first person that was like, oh, something just came out of that chicken's butt? Why don't we crack it open and cook it and eat it? Like, I bet it's delicious. Like, what is wrong with us? Like, what? Like, you ever think about that? Like, why do you think it's okay to eat something that has come out of a chicken's butt? Like, that's weird, right? But in our society, it's acceptable. We don't always think about, though, why we believe the things that we believe. Somebody that bites their fingernails, they don't bite their fingernails because they think fingernails are just so delicious, right? Like, just like a good noontime snack. No, there's a reason. There's somewhere in their life that maybe they were stressed out or full of anxiety, and they have these patterns, these behaviors, these things that they do that they don't really know why they do them, but they help relieve stress. I can't really explain why I'm behaving this way or why I'm doing these things, but I just do them. I don't know if you've ever been in this space. Have you ever been in a place in your life where you act out, or you fly off the handle, or you do something, you act out in anger, you say something, and you walk away, like almost as soon as the words are coming out of your mouth, it's like, why am I saying this? Like, I know that I shouldn't be saying these things. Or I know that I shouldn't fly off the handle and be angry. Why did I put that person down? I care about that person, and yet I just said something really destructive or harmful or rude, and I don't really know why I have these destructive patterns. I really don't know why I have these defense mechanisms or these behaviors. And what's interesting is all of the studies, all of the science that people that are outside the context of faith, they say the reason that we have these defense mechanisms, the reason we have these actually destructive behaviors, the reason we have the tendency, even when things are going good in our lives, seemingly good in our lives, to sabotage our relationships and our finances and our actual physical well-being all comes from the root of this one idea, and this one idea that they say it comes from is the idea of shame. Shame. When I talk about shame, you probably think of guilt. But shame and guilt are two different things. Guilt is I feel bad. Shame is I am bad. And so this whole idea that science is showing is it's actually my belief about my worth that causes me to act out in ways that I know that I shouldn't act out, the ways that defense mechanisms that I have to be harmful and to be hurtful. What's crazy is the science also shows that there's a direct correlation between shame and things like addiction, things like suicide, things like depression, bullying, eating disorders, all of these things that our society is plagued with. The science is showing that there's a direct correlation between shame, what I believe about myself, my worth, the things that I think make me less than or make me unworthy, that there's a direct correlation between those and my behaviors. You see, when I think that I am less than, when I think that there is something in my life that is taken away from my worth, I have this tendency to act out in ways that really make no sense, to do things that I wouldn't normally do. And that's what we find in this story. This woman has just lost her baby. Her baby has died in the middle of the night. And the first thing that she goes to do is to take another woman's baby? Like, does that make sense to you? If your baby had just died in the middle of the night, the last thing that you would do is want to go take somebody else's baby if you really cared about your baby. If the fact was, I just lost my baby and my baby has died, what's the proper response? Probably mourning. Probably, what am I going to do? How did this happen to me? I didn't see this one coming. This is a painful circumstance. I never thought that I would be here. But her first response is not to mourn the death of her baby. Her first response is to go and steal her neighbor's baby. Why? Because in this situation, it wasn't about the loss of her baby. For this woman's behavior, this woman's irrational behavior wasn't in response to the fact that she has lost her baby. Her baby wasn't just something that she had. Her baby represented something to her in her life. Her baby represented her worth. And in life, when we feel like something that we lost has taken away our worth, we will always act out in ways that are destructive to our lives. You know, the first thing that feeds shame in our life, this idea that I'm less than, is this idea of loss. That because of what I've lost in my life, I lost my spouse, I lost my father, I lost my mother, I lost my job, I lost my money, I lost my career, I lost all the people that I thought I should be able to count. Because I've lost, I haven't just lost, now I actually feel less than because I've lost. And so what I try to do then is, because I feel less than because of what I lost, I try to replace the things that I've lost. But this is actually the worst thing that you could ever do, because as long as I'm trying to replace the things that I'm lost, I'll never enjoy the things that I have, because I'll always be comparing them to the things that I lost. This woman going to take this other woman's baby, this is the worst decision that she could make. Why? Because as the baby grows up, you know the only thing that she's going to be reminded of? The fact that she lost her baby. And we do this in our lives. It's hard for me to enjoy the business that I have because it's not as successful as the business that I once had. It's hard for me to enjoy the context of my relationships now because I've lost relationships, or I've lost people that I've cared about, and because those are gone, I compare everything to the very thing that I have lost. This is the danger of shame. This is what shame does. When I feel like I'm less than because of the things that I've lost, I will always act out. I will always act irrationally. I will always do things that I shouldn't do for the sake of trying to make sense of my life. You see, I'm here today to tell somebody that in your life, the things that you've lost, if you could have changed it, you would have. Think about it. Nobody means to kill their baby. If she could have changed the fact that her baby was going to die, she would have. And some of us, we spend our lives feeling less than because things didn't go according to plan. And I want you to stop to think about what you're thinking about. If you could have saved the business, wouldn't you have saved the business? If you could have saved the marriage, wouldn't you have saved the marriage? If you would have saved your health or your spouse's health or your child's health, wouldn't you have done so? If you could have done something about it, wouldn't you have been able to do something about it? So why are you allowing yourself to feel less than based upon something that was completely outside of your control? You see, in your life, when you experience loss, we have to be people who are willing to evaluate, am I allowing my loss just to be loss, or am I allowing it to affect my worth? Because I don't have the things that I once had, do I feel less than? What makes you feel less than? In my life, there's so many times that I feel less than. Like I'm not good enough of a father, or I'm not good enough of a brother, or not good enough or a sister. Maybe you feel like you're not good enough of a worker, or not good enough or a spouse. What are the things in life that make you feel less than? And this is the great question, because all of humanity, every single person in this building, you know what we really desire? You know what every father in this building really desires? We just desire, I just want to be enough. And if we're honest, we probably can't remember the last time that I stood and I just felt like I'm enough, right? Why? Because down deep on the inside of us, there is something that is beyond just the 10% that is external. There are things in our life that cause shame, that cause us to feel less than, and to have the behaviors then that we can't explain. The crazy thing about the situation is no matter how hard this woman tries, she cannot get back the thing that she has lost. And to try and to replace her baby does not make the situation of her losing her own any better. You see, she can't replace her child, but you know what she can do? She can work towards having another child. In other words, you may have lost things in your life, but it doesn't mean that you have to stop living. I think in our world, in our society, we magnify the idea that success is when I achieve. Success is when I make something of myself, and I think that we under-celebrate the process of trying. I think the most courageous people are not the people that try and succeed. I think the most courageous people are the people who keep trying. Do you not know in the Bible where it talks about a righteous man or someone who is right with God? This is what it says. The definition of a righteous man is someone who falls, but he doesn't just fall, he gets back up again. I love this. I love that the context of that scripture because you're not to be celebrated when you're at the bottom. And you're not to be celebrated when you're at the top. You're to be celebrated in the process of getting up again. You're to be celebrated in the process of trying. I may go through hardship and I may lose some things, but I'm not going to lose my life. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to get up again. I'm going to keep pressing into the things, man, that I could have in my life, that my life's not over because I've lost. And I'm here to tell you in this place, your life is not over because you've lost. You may feel like it's over. You sit in a room and you think because you've lost a loved one and everybody else has theirs that you are less than, and you are not less than because of what you have lost. You sit in a room and people who have experienced success and have more money than you, and you think to yourself, I tried that and it didn't work, so I must be less than when it comes to my worth. You're not less than because of what you have lost. I would encourage you today to know that you are enough, and the things that you have lost do not change that. Your worth in life is not predicated upon what you have or what you have lost. But if we don't know how to deal with loss will always create shame in our lives. To have the courage to push on past the things that I've lost, the marriage that ended in divorce, the job that ended in termination, the spouse that I lost, or the family member that I lost, rather than to sit in the place and to think that I am less than. Everybody else has somebody than me. And I'm not just talking about death. You may be somebody who, based upon your job, you had to move, and you're around people that are surrounded by their family, and when you're around them, you don't have any family, so you feel like you are less than. And I'm here to tell you today that you are not less than because of what you do not have in your life. You are worth everything because you exist, and because you're here, and because you're trying. Courage is not found at the top. Courage is found in the journey. Do you have the courage that even when you lose, to try again? We're programmed this way. Think about it. Think about it, guys. When you go out the first time, when you're really young, to go try out for the baseball team, you don't make the team. What happens? You're not good enough, right? You're less than because you didn't achieve. Our society programs us to think this way. And if we're going to deal with the things in our life that keep us from living the lives that we want, to get rid of the defense mechanisms and odd behaviors that we can't explain, we're going to have to realize that science shows, that in the studies, it shows that, you know what, 100% of us, every single person in this building, on some level, we struggle with shame. We struggle with this idea that we're not enough. And you may be in this place and you think, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm pretty sure it's not me. Or you may be in this place thinking, I know exactly what you're talking about and I don't want to talk about it. And neither of those two sides of that conversation change the fact that each and every one of us have things in our life that makes us feel less than. I'm less than because I'm not young anymore. Right? I'm less than because I'm not old enough. When I get there, then I'll be worth something. And then when I get there, I feel like I'm too old. And because I'm too old, I'm washed up. And God can never use me, and my life can never be what I want it to be because of the things that I've lost. I've lost my youth, and now I'm worthless. You're not worthless because you lost your youth. You're not worthless because of the things that you lost. It may not have happened the way that you thought it would happen. It may not still be happening in the timeline you thought it should happen. But you're not less than because of what you've lost. Those of you who have had miscarriages in this place and you feel like you're not woman enough because your body can't sustain a child, I'm here to tell you that you are not less than because of what you have lost. You are not less than because of what you have lost. You are enough. You are enough. It is our loss that oftentimes programs us to find shame, but it's not just loss. Sometimes it's not what we lost. Sometimes it's what we've lived. Sometimes it's my experiences. Sometimes it's the things that I've gone through, the things that have been done to me. The things that I've done to others, the things that have been done to me, the paths that I've walked, the things that I've seen. Sometimes it's what I've lived that causes shame in my life. Because in this story, the woman who has lost her baby is not the only one who is experiencing shame. The woman who has lost her baby, she's ashamed because of what she's lost. But the woman who has her baby, she's also ashamed, but she's ashamed because of what she has. Is it not interesting, the terminology? The woman who has lost her baby, you know what she wants to talk about? The woman who has lost her baby, she says this: the living son is mine and the dead one is yours. In other words, first she doesn't want to talk about her dead child. She wants to talk about the other person's living child. Because in life, we never want to talk about our shame. We never want to talk about the things. So the person who is lost, she says, I want to talk about how the living son is mine and the dead one is yours. But the woman whose son is alive is the opposite. What does she say? She says, the dead one is yours first and the living one is mine. It's this idea of I don't want to talk about what's alive. I want to talk about what's dead. What could you be ashamed of? If you had a child, wouldn't the dead baby be the last thing that you wanted to talk about? Why do I care about your loss if my baby's still alive and you're trying to take my baby? I want to talk about my baby that's alive, but this woman says your baby's the dead one and mine's the alive one. Why? Because she doesn't want to talk about what she has. Why? Because she talks about what she has to remember how she got it. She has to remember that she's a hooker. She has to remember that somebody paid her money to sleep with her, and it was because of that she bore a child. Sometimes in life, I'm not ashamed of the things that I've lost. Sometimes I'm ashamed of the things that I've lived. I'm ashamed of how I became the thing that I became. I'm not ashamed of what I've lost. I'm ashamed of the journey. If you knew me, if you knew the things that I've done, if you knew the secrets that I have, we think these kinds of things is, you tell me I could be great, but you don't know me. You don't know the family I grew up in. You don't know the poor decisions that I've made. You don't know what happened to me as a child that stole from me my worth. And sometimes in life, it's not just the things that we've lost, but it's the life that we lived. And this is the danger, because rather than talk about the life that we've lived, rather than come to terms with the fact that my past or my journey doesn't have to define me, what I end up doing is I start turning on my brother and sister. Rather than deal with my own issue, I start pointing fingers at everybody else. So I get into a conflict, and rather than evaluate that maybe the problem stems from an internal issue of self-worth with me, I just want to talk about everybody else's dysfunction. And I want to magnify their dysfunction. This is exactly what this woman does. Is it not crazy? She says, we were the only people in the house. We were alone. Nobody else was there. This woman's baby died, and the way that the baby died is she rolled over and killed her baby while I was dead asleep. How do you know that she rolled over and killed her baby if you were dead asleep? You don't know that that's the way this baby died. We don't know if this baby died of natural causes. We don't know if this baby just died in the middle. But what this woman does, because when I want to be right, when I don't want to come face to face with the fact that I feel unworthy because of my situation and because of my journey, I will always try to make other people's journey look worse than my journey. I'll always ignore the fact of what I've been through. I'll try to magnify the things that you've been through. She says, you killed your baby. We don't know if she killed her baby. And what's crazy about shame is shame breeds more shame. And now this woman who has lost her baby, not only has she lost her baby, but now she believes that she's killed her baby. And this is the danger of shame, because shame will always cause us to turn on one another. That's why this is bigger than just a personal conversation of how do I live my best life. I'm talking today about how do we change the world? How do we change the climate of our society? How do we turn things around? If we want to see an end to things that we hate and we despise, we're going to have to deal with our shame, because it is our shame that is causing us to turn on one another. You see, your shame is betting on the fact that you believe you're the only one. Shame can only exist in isolation. Shame can only exist when you believe, and you may know that you're not, but it's an internal belief. It's the 90%. Like, shame can only exist when I believe that I'm alone in this journey. You want to do away with shame? Stop buying into the fact that you're the only one that's ever gone through what you're going through. Stop buying into the fact that you think that your situation is different. You know when these women were at their happiest? You know when these women were at their best? You know when they were at their strongest? Was it when they were living together in this house, and it wasn't about what they brought to the table? What am I talking about? They lived together in a house, and they both were prostitutes. In other words, when I look at my journey, man, I know that I'm imperfect. When I look at my journey, I know that I've messed up. When I look at my journey, I don't deserve good things in my life. And as they looked at each other and begin to have this basic conversation, which transcends a dialogue about sexual harassment, when they begin to have this conversation of what you've gone through, I've gone through. Me too. You've been a whore, and I've been a whore. We've been doing things with our lives that we shouldn't have been doing, and those things should have predicated our worth, and yet God still chooses to work on the inside of us. What am I talking about? Before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. You see, God is the one who crafts a child in his mother's womb, and they may be prostitutes, but even in their prostitution, God was working inside their situation. I'm here to tell you today, you may not feel worthy. You may not feel like you're enough. You may feel like a deadbeat daddy. You may feel because of your loss that you're not worth something, but God still has the ability to work within your situation. On the other side of your self-image issues, God is breathing life. When were they at their best? When were they at their strongest? When their worth wasn't predicated upon their behavior. When what made us together wasn't the fact that you were better than me, or I was better than you, or you had more money than me, or you had less behavioral issues than me. When we looked at each other and we said, yeah, you know what, I'm in the same boat. Neither of us deserve it, and still God chooses to work on the inside of us. When they were in that position, it's when they were the strongest. Because shame can't live. Shame can't live in a place where we unite our hearts and our minds and learn to have compassion for one another. And not just for one another, some of us need to learn to have compassion for ourselves. For some of us, it's easy to have compassion for the single mom working 3 jobs, and you see it, and man, I can want to do anything. But I'm talking about you. I'm talking about when you go home at night and you lay your head down on your pillow, how do you see yourself? Because I'm here to tell you the things that you've lost in your life do not take away from your worth. And the things that you have gone through, the situations that you have gone through in your life do not take away from the fact that you're enough. You are enough. You are enough. You're enough in your situations. Your behaviors don't change that. Dads, you're enough. You're enough of a father. You're enough of a mother. You're enough of a grandparent. You're enough of a worker, and it's not predicated upon what you've lost or what you have. It's not predicated upon what you've done or what's been done to you. You're enough because God says that you are enough. You're enough because there's air in your lungs and because you're here. I think one of the best ways that we can learn to deal away with shame is to find this place of compassion. We get into the trap in life about just wanting to be right. This is really what causes us to turn on each other. These women argue in front of this king, and both of them are just wanting to be right. I want the baby. No, I want the baby. You deserve. No, I want the baby. And we make up crazy things to justify our point of view so that we can be right. And I'm here to pose, I guess, the thought or the idea that in life, what if life was about more than just being right? What if what makes you worthy is not you being right? What if what makes you worthy is the fact that God has had compassion on all of us? And what if we could learn to have that same compassion on everybody else? At the end of the story, everybody is impressed with what? That Solomon has figured out the right thing to do. And they almost like spiritualize it. Like it's like, wow, look at what, that's a God thing. Man, to be able to do that, like think about the wisdom and think about how he must, man, he's just like really in tune to be able to do this. And everybody celebrates the fact that justice has been served. That this woman whose baby is alive, she's got to keep her baby. My question is, what about the other woman? What about the woman who now not just knows that her baby is dead, but she leaves this conversation believing that she killed her baby? She doesn't have a husband to go home to. She doesn't have kids to go home to. She doesn't have anybody singing her praises. Everybody's singing the praises of the person who was right. I'm telling you, in this world, if we want justice but have no compassion, we are no different than darkness. In our life, it's got to be about more than just being right. This is my fear for like Christianity. Like I hope we don't just become like the Pharisees in the Bible. Jesus, you know that you shouldn't be healing on the Sabbath. It's not right. Jesus, you know this woman was caught in adultery. She should be stoned. That's what's right. But Jesus never left justice alone. He always married it with compassion. The fact that the person comes before the principal, and he comes before this woman who is caught in the act of adultery, and what was right would be that she would be stoned, and Jesus gets down in the dirt with her and says, not today, right? In our lives, we can't be people who are just focused on justice without compassion. It's this whole idea that you can do the right thing, but the wrong way, and it be the wrong thing. It's this picture of, isn't it not crazy in this story? Everybody's like so obsessed about Solomon's great decision, and man, look at all the wisdom. And yet Solomon was the one in Proverbs who wrote this scripture. He said this, do not be wise in your own eyes. In other words, don't just be seeking wisdom and what is right as it pertains to your perspective. He says this, but instead, fear the Lord and depart from evil. What does it mean to fear the Lord? To fear the Lord is to love what God loves, to hate what God hates. What does God love? God loves people. In other words, do not be wise in your own eyes. Don't just be about being right. Love people, and when you love people, you depart from evil. You depart from evil. I would propose to you that when we live our lives solely about justice, solely about doing what's right based upon our political views, and solely doing what's right based upon the way that I see things, when we don't mix compassion, when we don't mix love, when we don't take time to understand a person's journey and what they've been through, I'm telling you, we are hugging evil. And in our lives, we cannot afford, in our society, we cannot afford to keep seeking justice without mixing compassion and watching our world fall apart. If we want to see change, not just in the world, but we want to see change on the inside of us, we got to have compassion. And that compassion does not start with having compassion for people. It starts with having compassion for yourself and for your journey. This is what I've come to tell you. You may feel like you're doing a horrible job, but I'm here to tell you today that you're doing a good job, that you're enough. And you're not enough because you feel like you're enough. You're enough because God says that you're enough. You see, last night, I'm sitting there, and I'm having this moment trying to, do good with taking care of, my spirit man and all this stuff, and I'm having them just sitting in silence, and I'm having this conversation with God, and I say to God, God, is there anything that you want to say to me? And you know what I'm expecting? I'm expecting him to give me a list of things that I need to start working on, right? I need you to be making more time for this. I need you to be a little bit more diligent, maybe in your devotional life, or make sure that you're getting up at a certain time, or have non-negotiables as it pertains to your family or to business. And I'm thinking in my mind that God's going to give me some sort of critique. God, is there anything that you want to say to me? And out of nowhere, out of my heart, I couldn't have even just made it up on my own if I tried. I heard in my heart, you're doing a good job. Wow. And you know what? If I'm honest with you today, if I'm honest with you, Fresno campus, that's the last thing that I feel most of the time. I never feel like I'm enough. I never feel like I'm talented enough. I never feel like I feel like I'm decent in most things, but not great at any. This is the way that I live my life. I don't feel like I'm enough of a dad. I don't feel like I'm enough of a friend. I don't feel like I'm enough of a son. I don't feel qualified. This is me. Okay, this is how I feel. And to think that God, in his goodness, could look past basically my prostitution to see beauty on the inside of me. That even in my journey, the way that he sees me, my worth is not predicated upon my behavior, but the fact that God is at work on the inside of you. And I'm here to tell somebody today that you're enough, and it's not what you've done that's made you enough, and you may feel like you're not enough. And to you know what I believe God says? You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. Because God does not celebrate there. He celebrates the try. He does not celebrate what you see as success. He celebrates the fact that you keep getting up and you keep trying and you don't give up and you keep putting one foot in front of the other and you keep moving, and when it hurts, you get up, and when you don't understand, you get up, and when it's hard to believe, you get up because you believe. You believe that your worth is found in more than what you've lost. Your worth is found in more than what you've lived. We're in this together. Some of you have things in your life that no matter how hard you try to get past them, and you've told everybody, I'm over that. You told everybody, I'm over that. But yet when it's just you, when you think about things that you want to try, when you think about things that you want to do, it's always the affair that pops up. It's always the abortion that pops up. It's always the fact that you had a miscarriage that pops up. It's always the fact that you lost your job or you tried to start that business and it failed that pops up. And what I'm saying to you today, it's not worth it to carry the shame. You see, as this woman, she takes the baby and she says, when I took the baby, I realized that it was dead. In other words, I realized that it wasn't alive, that it wasn't functioning, that it was stopping life from occurring. I realized that what my situation was dead. She says, but when I put my situation in the light, I realized that it wasn't my baby. Here today, I'm here to tell you there's things in your life that make you feel less than. That baby represented the woman's shame, what she had lost. And I believe today when we think about what we think about, when we realize, man, I'm not just flying off the handle, and I'm not just treating people bad, and I'm not just doing things, I'm not just giving death and expecting life from people. This is not just something that's happening, but it's coming from somewhere. I believe when we take the time to embrace the tough conversations, you know why? Because I feel less than. The reason I'm behaving it's because I don't feel like I'm enough. And so I sabotage my relationships, and I sabotage my business ventures, and I do all of these kinds of things. And if I'm honest, where it comes from it's my shame. And I believe when we take that shame, that dead situation, and we put it in the light, you know what you realize? That shame is not your shame. That shame 2,000 years ago was nailed to a cross by a man who saw you and saw your worth when you couldn't see worth in yourself. And the fact that you can square your shoulders today is not based upon how good you are, but it's based upon how good he is. We are followers of Jesus Christ. We are not helpless and we are not hopeless. We have a Savior who is looking out for us and we weren't looking out for ourselves. He came from heaven and made himself man so that he could live a sacrificial life and die a sacrificial death so that he could be dead but not stay there, that he could come back from the dead. He could embrace our shame and our pain so that we don't have to live life predicated upon what I've lost or what I've lived, but I can understand that my worth is found in whose I am. The fact that I believe in something bigger than me, and the fact that I'm here makes me enough. The fact that I'm trying makes me enough. The fact that I keep getting up and I keep going for it, and everything in my life tells me that I shouldn't. Every person in my life tells me why I shouldn't. The fact that I keep moving kills the shame. What do you believe makes you less than? What is the thing that every time good happens in your life, you always compare it to what was? Not just good or bad. What is the thing when you step out to make a decision, you're always looking back? And in fact, the motivating factor for why you live your life now is because of how you used to live your life. It's like so tied to you that you don't even know how to be in the moment because you're tied to feeling like I have to prove something. I have to prove that I can take care of a baby. I have to prove that I am worth it as a mother. I have to prove that my body can not just have a child but take care of it. I have something to prove. What do you live your life with that makes you feel like you have something to prove? You have nothing to prove. Your worth is not based upon what you make of yourself. Some of you are so disappointed because you tried your best to be a great parent, and you look at your kids' lives now and you think, man, I really must have screwed that up. And I'm here to tell you that you're worth it in your experiences, the things that you've experienced in your life. It doesn't change that. You see, how do I say it? You're enough. You're enough, and your imperfection doesn't change that. The fact that everything your life hasn't turned out the way you thought it would turn out, and it's not working in the timeline that you thought it would work out, but you're enough, and your imperfection doesn't change that. Your marriage didn't work, it fell apart. You're on marriage number 3, but you're still enough, and your imperfection doesn't change that. Your kids are not turning out like you want them to turn out. You lost a family member, you lost a spouse, you lost someone that you loved. You're enough, and your imperfections, the imperfections in your life doesn't change that. You were abused as a child, and you feel like it stole your worth, but I'm here to tell you that you are enough, and the things that you have gone through in your life, it doesn't change that. It doesn't change that. You're enough. You're doing a good job. Come to encourage a hurting mom, a wounded brother, a confused sister, a dad who feels like, man, if I could do it all again, sure do it different. Let go of it. Let go of it. Because God looks past your past, and He sees the life that He's working on the inside of you. Would you close your eyes with me at all of our campuses? God, in this space today, I ask that you would give us the courage not just to be excited about the fact that we're enough, but I ask, God, that you would give us the courage to actually believe that we are. God, I ask that you would give us the courage to face our shame, to take it and honestly, it's not even really about talking about it. It's about you coming to terms with it. It's really not about you leaving this place and calling somebody and telling them, hey, no, it's really just about you saying, you know what? This situation between you and God, it makes me feel less than. And when you put it in the light, you see when it's put into focus. That's why it's in the light. When it's in the light, you can see it. Remember, I opened the conversation. It's something we don't want to talk about. We don't want to think. When you put it in the light, it's just so that you can see it. It's acknowledging, yeah, you know what? I probably have things in my life that are making me feel less than. And when I put it in the light, I see that it's not mine. That shame's not mine. I'm here to tell you today, despite your age, despite your race, despite your economic background, despite what you've lost, despite what you have, despite your accolades or how you've shown everybody that's hurt you, despite what you're going through, despite what you've been through, none of those things matter. You are worthy because you're here. You are enough because God says that you're enough. God, I ask that you'd help us to deal with our shame in this place, these things that make us feel less than, to know you're working.
I worship you, Majesty. Your grace has found me just as I am. I'm empty-handed but alive in you.
Come on, what makes you feel less than? The lack of money that you have, things that your spouse says to you, things that you've lost. What makes you feel less than?
I worship you,
You're not less than.
Your grace has found me just as I am.
Empty-handed.
I'm empty-handed, but alive in your hand.
Oh,
We sing majesty. We worship you, majesty. Your grace has found me just as I am.
oh, just as I am.
I'm empty-handed.
Come on, can we lift our voices and sing this together? Some of you just need to, out of your mouth, under your breath, just need to tell yourself that you're enough. Some of you need to hear that you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. You don't feel like it, but it's not about what you feel and it's not about what you see. You're doing a good job. He's working in you. He's working in you. He's working in you. He's working in you. You're not qualified. You've been out on the outskirts and you haven't really been paying attention to him, but he's been paying attention to you. He's been watching you. You're not forgotten. You're not forgotten. Even when you've forgotten about him, he hasn't forgotten about you. Even when you've turned your back on him and you've been out running the streets and doing your own thing and trying to make a buck, he hasn't turned his back on you. He's been birthing life inside of you. And that life is not determined by how good that you are. It's based upon how good that he has been to you. God has been working in you when you can't see it, when your back's been turned, when you didn't understand, when you were full of anxiety and depression and question. There's been things on the inside of you. He's been saving you and you didn't know it. He's been saving you and you didn't know it. You're enough. Oh, yes, God. Yes, God. Yes, God. Yes, God. Yes, God.
Your grace has found me just as I am. Empty-handed, but alive.
The only way I know how to say this is something. I believe that today is a wake-up call. I believe that God is saying to us today as a church family that this is a wake-up call. But this isn't a wake-up call to tell you to get your life back in gear. This isn't a wake-up call to tell you, you know what, try harder and be better and do more and get yourself back in church and be there every weekend and give. But it's not that kind of wake-up call. You need to waken to the fact that you're enough because he says you're enough. You need to wake back up to the mercies of God that are new every morning. You need to know that it's more than a slogan and more than a cliche and more than something that you were taught as a little kid, that God is working on the inside of you. And it's time to wake up. It's time to see his goodness and his mercy. I'm so glad that I don't chase goodness and mercy, that goodness and mercy chases me and goodness and mercy has been chasing you. And I believe that goodness and mercy showed up today to say, wake up. You're enough. Stop isolating yourself because you feel like God doesn't approve of you. Stop allowing what man sees as dysfunctional behavior to keep you from God. Some of you, this is the first time that you've been back in church since you came out to your family that you were gay. And after you did, everybody that you knew rejected you. And you said to yourself, I'll never go back there. And you showed up here today, and I hear God saying to you, wake up. I love you. I'm for you. I'm not against you. The church is not for you. The church is not against you. We're going to have to wake up and realize that we're all in process. We got to hold each other's hands. We got to stop saying, your baby's dead, my baby's alive, your baby's dead, my baby's alive. No, we're both whores. We are both prostitutes, and if it were not for his grace and it were not for his goodness, I would not be here. I need compassion like you need compassion. I need his grace like you need his grace. I need his mercy like you need his mercy. Wake up. Wake up. It's not just about being right. It's not about winning the argument. It's not about winning the debate. No. We're all wrong about something. We all have things that we're ashamed of. And I may know about yours and you don't know about mine. But it doesn't change the fact that we are both guided through life by the things that imprison us because of shame. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to live a less than life. I don't want to live a less than life. What are your hang-ups? What are the things that when they're talked about, you get uncomfortable? What are the things that you want to point fingers at other people for? Maybe it's not a revealer of their imperfection. Maybe it's a revealer of something that is on the inside of me. Maybe the problem maybe the problem isn't that somebody else has lost their baby. Maybe the problem is that I'm really ashamed of mine. And maybe the loss of others, the hardship of others, the way society looks at others is just a way for me to escape from having to come face to face with the fact that I'm ashamed of my situation. Got to look a little bit higher than the storm. Got to look a bit higher than the storm. It's kind of like when you take off on an airplane, it's in the middle of a storm, and it's like everything seems chaotic, and then finally you break through the clouds, and you're like, whoa, like I'm above it. I'm above it now. And when you live your life in shame, you're living life in a storm. You're just tossed wherever the wind blows you. Fight to fight, argument to argument, discussion after discussion, political debate after political debate, finger pointing. If we ever set aside our shame, I believe we get above the storm. Majesty. Would you sing it? Oh, majesty. Your grace has found me just as I am, just as you are. Empty-handed. That's how we all come to him. He found you. He didn't find you put together. He's been watching you when you were broken. Oh, there's life ahead. There's life ahead. On the other side of your loss, there's life ahead. On the other side of your wounds, there's life ahead. Learning to have compassion doesn't do away with the need for justice. And it doesn't do away with the fact that you've been wronged, that you've been hurt. But I will tell you this, that learning to have love, not just for others, but yourself, is so much more powerful than any hate for others or hate for yourself. Learning to love yourself in the midst of your imperfection is probably the greatest gift that you could give yourself, because that's how God sees you. God loves us when we are what? Unlovable. When we were still sinners, Jesus died for us. In other words, he didn't even know for sure if we'd want him back. But just in case we did, just in case we decided that we didn't want to do life our way, he sacrificed his life. He lived for this great maybe, just maybe. Maybe they'll want me. Maybe they'll need me. And I think in our lives, we have to have the courage that even when we don't understand, even when we don't see, even when there's no guarantees, that we take the road of compassion. God, would you help us to do it today? Let's sing one more time, Drew, just take a second.
Majesty. Your grace has found me just as I am. I'm empty-handed but alive in your hands. We sing majesty. We worship you, majesty. Your grace has found me just as I am. I'm empty-handed but alive
you're in this place, any of our campuses, you've never made a decision to place your faith in Christ, believe in something bigger than yourself, I want to give you the opportunity to do so today. I'm not going to try to talk you into it. I believe your heart compels you to do so, to put your faith in something bigger than you so that you really can have an ability to get past the issues of worth that we struggle with in our lives. I'm going to lead you in a prayer. We're a family, so nobody prays alone. I'm going to ask everybody to pray this out loud. Clovis campus, would you say it with me? And at the end of this prayer, our campus teams are going to come back. But let's pray this out loud. Say this. Say, Jesus, today I believe in my heart and I say out of my mouth that you are the Son of God. I believe that you lived for me. I believe that you died for me. And I believe that you came back from the dead for me. Today I call you my Savior and I make you my Lord. Say this, say, Jesus, help me to live the life that you made me to live. And I mean this part with all of your guts. Say this, say, help me to live my best life. In Jesus' name. Everybody said, amen.